Hello everyone, I hope you're doing fine, you're doing well. So for the video today, I'm going to talk about a book that I really love and I want to practice. As you already know, you don't have to worry, I'm going to put subtitles and I'm going to design an image or a map. And also, I hope that I do it like in a way that is coherent, so yeah, pray for me. I did notes about the subject, but I also tried to not script it because I wanted to see how well I can deliver this in a way that is not like memorizing it or scripted. This is gonna be somewhat challenging for me. Okay, so I'm going to tell you about this chapter of this book that is called The Myth of Normal and is by Gabor Maté and his son. I came across this author in a video actually, and he was talking about addiction. So I thought about his takes and his points of view on addiction. At the same time, I wanted to learn more about that, but his books weren't available here, so I just surrendered and I forgot about him until he published this book. And this is an amazing book because it has a lot of information like from different types of branches of academic subjects, you know, like he's a physician and he talks about psychology, he talks about anthropology and medicine. So it's really a complete kind of analysis of dynamics and culture and the effects that they have nowadays. I have it on its original language, so I really like that I am able to comprehend exactly what he meant to say, and I love that for me. So continuing and getting more specific with you guys, the chapter that I'm going to talk about now is chapter 13 and it's called, I have it right here, Forcing the Brain in the Wrong Direction, the Sabotage of Childhood. In the previous chapters, we were discussing a lot of immune disease and how that relates to stress and how stress is an effect. Constant stress, more like distress, is maintained by our society and structures and systems that we as humans have created, and the effects that has in the group of people, minorities, women, and how that also affects like the situations of obstetric violence, like violence at delivering a baby, giving birth, and all those topics that concern like motherhood and how we are supposed to not have stress where we are in the womb, but like obviously you have to adapt to stressful situations. Like stress in a mothering amount is good for you. He talks about that for you to have a context that how we got here. And well, this chapter opens up by saying and discussing mother blaming as something that we really go through as a society, I guess, like is a shared experience for all of us, even though not everyone has the privilege to grow up with a woman and a mother figure that really provides nurturing and caring for their child. So that is a starting point to develop the idea of how responsible are parents for children and how that inability to be responsible and be caring and be nurturing affects really the child's brain, and how much actual responsibility we can put on their shoulders as parents that grew up with a lot of necessities or with different socioeconomic status and context, and how much resources they actually had to develop as well. And it puts a line of questioning about how much is their fault and how much they could really change when they were younger. Thus brings the attention to cultural ecology. That is the context in which we are born to, you know, like societal constructs and norms and institutions and systems. So the culture not being able to provide a tuned, present, and responsible parent. This has consequences as stress in the infant, like when we're in the womb, we have a lot of stressful stimuli. Is really a predictor of a lot of things. And That is one of the consequences. Another one is the mechanization of birth. Really make it just as insensible and violent as it can be, because some experiences of labor are just not they shouldn't be. I actually did my thesis on that matter, on obstetric and gyno violence. So violent and so stressful, this experience that is bringing another human being into the world. Also, we have a so-called attenuation of the parent instinct. This means that capitalism, neoliberalism, has made us really having a child or giving birth or parenthood really not an option to do it well. We are meant to just have a disconnection with our parents, or in the case that you're a parent, with your children, because you have to work, unless if you have like the privilege or the situation or the conversations and the position to just take care of your child, not being worried about how you're gonna eat, how you're gonna pay school, how you're gonna pay the doctor's appointments, how you're gonna pay anything. Even being in that position, sometimes parents and mothers are not attuned and present to be able to be there to respond to the needs of a child. So that doesn't guarantee as much as we could think. It guarantees a lot, but not everything. Okay, so as we said, we actually, well, I actually said it already, but the denial of the child's needs, that is so common, and that is so sad to see and experience. And I guess every children that you can meet that, I don't know, is pushed into technology too early, because parents don't know how to emotionally regulate their children. It's just too sad. And the saddest part is that sometimes you cannot blame them for the circumstances. So sometimes it has to do with emotional regulation and not the understanding of a child. If you as an adult have a regulated nervous systems and you can regulate your emotions, you are most likely to regulate your children's needs and being able to sustain them when they're having a crisis or they are dysregulated. Also, we have economic and social pressures that like forced us to break community ties. I am a strong believer in the fact that you don't need like a nuclear family. You need a community. You need someone or people or a community that you know you can count on, and they're safe and can be like a support for you, and specifically another adults that you can trust to be a secure attachment to your children. What is really crazy to me that sometimes people that are conservative, religious in a way that is not critical, and the right wing in the political side of all, are so pro nuclear families and are so pro heteronormative like standards. So much so, you have a single mother there in the family, because there are not much dads that are really present or that have an impact or an involvement in the rearing of their children. So it's just sometimes it's just ridiculous. So that is why I am saying that it's more important to have a community than to have a partner in the romantic and conservative and nuclear family type of view. Really, there are a lot of single mothers out there that have a husband, and that is something that is just so normalized. So when we talk about cultural and social structures like breaking or causing erosions in the community ties, this is what we mean, because it's an imposition that it doesn't secure you anything, you know, because it's not necessarily conscious, and it is sometimes just in the benefit of the ones that really can benefit from that. I don't know how, but we had 5, And now we have the last one. And the final cause is educational systems that are made to be stressful in children, pushing them to compete, to compare. And that is so important when we talk about the cultural ecology of all that leads to this sabotage in childhood. And also combined by the intentions / reality of how parents actually do their labor or do their work. It's just not a good it's not a good result, because parents can have a lot of good intentions for their children and move from a place of their childhood trauma and have this mindset of giving the child everything that they were not brought into. So there is a lot of childhood trauma, a lot of their real life experiences that are not even looked into. So it's really a dichotomy of my intention and what I am reality putting on as a parent. Sadly, most of the times that is unsolved trauma, and that translates to parents not being able to let their children be kids, be their own age, and they just give them a lot of expectations and put a lot of weight on them and don't let them be themselves. That really creates a lot of issues more on in the development of children and a human being. Moving on, a point that I wanted to exacerbate about this whole chapter is that parents' departure from the lives of their kids. It's being because of they have to work, they have to attend other things to be able to feed them, to cover all the basic needs, that physical needs, more material needs, and that is a mistake for the natural state of things. So as a consequence of that, we have to put kids in school really earlier, on preschool. So we have to institutionalize our kids and children way too early for us to being able to work and be and live. We are already robbing them so much in the sense of liberty, in the sense of their mental health, and this is why I say that it has to do a lot with their mental health, is because it makes children seek approval and validation from other kids. So if there's something that I want you all to understand, is that it is a neurophysiological need to have an attachment, a secure attachment as a kid. It's not something that psychologists or neuropsychologists invented to make parents feel bad. It's just the way that it is. It's just the way we can explain a lot of suffering, a lot of mental health issues, is the root of a lot, okay? I'm not saying that has to make us like resentful of our parents all of our lives, but more of compassionate in a later stage of that. You have the right to be sad, upset for all the things that you left when you were younger. Later in the process, you can have compassion for your caregivers because most likely they didn't have it either. There are actually really few people that have their needs met as a child. So as I was saying, that is the way our brain is haywire. That is how we learn the things that we learn when we are on our earlier stages in life, when we're a baby, and we seek for a person to attach to. That person has to be consistent, has to be able to respond to our needs. As babies, we learn a lot imitating the things that are around us. And what happens when there's no one around, there is no adult to emulate, we start seeking that role model in our peers or in objects. So that could explain a lot of, I don't know, I am so attached to a teddy bear, I'm so attached to a certain object of my childhood. That explains a lot of that. Obviously, I'm not talking it like in depth, the whole attachment theory. The displacement of adults of a child's attachment is just dangerous in so many ways, and we can actually see the effects of that in our society. If we evaluate actually the problematics that surround the formal education system, we're going to see a lot of bullying that has to do a lot with acceptance in the peer group and the need of belonging in a social setting, and not feeling secure in ourselves enough that we have to be complacent, that we have to follow trends, that I'm so over the noise, that we have to follow trends to fit in, that we have to follow and always is just seeking the external on our environment to achieve psychological maturity. You know how damaging that is for a child? Generally, what happens is that kids get so involved and lose on the peer world, that lose connection with the adults around them, and they put all this emotional expectation and this value on their peers for them to receive as well. That is not healthy, and just if you're not secure in yourself, do not have present parents or parents that provide you this safety, this emotional safety, psychological maturity, and guide you, you're most likely to seeking this security in your peer group, in your possibly grow up with a lot of unhealthy ways to have relationships, to have friendships, to have a lot of unhealthy expectations of people, to have really a harder time when it comes to just accepting others and have a secure attachment with people and things, and be trustful of others without put all your value in others. So when I read that, I was so relieved that it was just not a me issue, you know, because I also grew up in a household of working women, of not really a person that was just so constant with me emotionally or with me in general, as well as my peers and my friends. So I grew up with friendships that I can see that we put a lot of weight one to another of our emotions. This is especially with women. With men, if they were from the queer community, from the LGBTQ plus community, and we took a lot of roles that weren't ours, and we tried to like emulate that and be there. And this is not necessarily problematic. We need to relate to people with on our own age, but we cannot just put the weight of emotional maturity on a child. Like, children are constantly changing. An example of that can be when we were on summer vacation and we were like disconnected from our class from 2 months, you know, and you came back and you saw and you felt how everyone changed over the summer, because we were changing, we were developing. There is no place in that situation for a child, for children to feel comfort within another kid. That is just not healthy, and that is what happens. These situations tend to lead to social anxiety, to depression, to procrastination, to a lot of mental issues that are just so normalized in our society, and they have been coming out of more because like we're not changing that. We're not trying to readjust society as a place that is healthy yet. I don't know how with all the information that we have, but this is what I'm trying to do, because all the information sometimes is there, but it's not a focus. It's not like something that people want to hear or want to, or have the ability to understand, or have the ability or the time to just search, because of all the demands of society. So again, not blaming, just stating things. And having childhood being this internally inconsistent process for children, and also a big part that is influential to the development of kids nowadays is social media. Like, that is a demonstration, that is like a tangible product of this peer-oriented development. Like, you don't have to be with your neighbor, you don't have to be with your friends physically. You can relate and put value on an idol, on an influencer, on another person that is your age that is on social media. And that is how you get cyberbullying. That is how you get a lot of pro-social relationships, like all the things that happens with K-pop, that happens with celebrities, of being a role model, that having this expectation of understanding their fans in a way that is personal, and it is emotional, and it is also psychological. And that is just an effect of all this culture and all this society that doesn't allow parents to be present, trying to be there for their children and for their children to have an internally consistent like being or process. So finally, because I feel that I've been yapping here for an hour, and probably I did, a point that I want to you to stick with is that when a kid is just constantly seeking validation from other kids and their peers, and there is rejection or is not understanding of what is happening internally, they shut down. That is the protective response that a child has. Thus starts getting more closed up, more unable to be vulnerable. And why is so important to be vulnerable as a child? First of all, for emotional maturity, for developing yourself, creating a self-esteem, creating good habits, creating growth, comes from being vulnerable. For having a vulnerable state is a process. So if you don't have those moments, you're not able to grow. And when a kid shuts down, that is just more likely to feel empty, to feel boredom, to feel lack of intimacy, to feel alienated, evolve to have avoidant conducts, and later on being, in a long run, looking for drugs or other experiences that just helps them to avoid what they're feeling, because they don't feel safe in themselves, they don't feel safe with the people around them. So I see a lot of that played on my generation, my mom's generation, my father's generation. I guess now we can name it. Before we couldn't even name, oh, I'm feeling this, I have depression, I have anxiety, I have all these things. But we're not really fixing or bringing awareness to what is really causing it, and we're trying to blame one another for our situations when it's bigger than that. And that is why we have to be involved in politics. I'm so sorry. Well, so that is a brief explanation of that chapter. There is a lot of points that I haven't touched yet, but I shared what I am passionate about. I'm really passionate about having good childhoods, that children that are being brought into this world have more options, have more freedom to be just children. That is just going to be reached by adults that are conscious of these things and these topics, and care enough that being aware to get informed and to be just open to all these changes, and to have a little bit of self-criticism in a way that is helpful. And if you are struggling with that, or if you have someone dear to you, a friend, a family member that is in the process of raising a child, maybe try to have a conversation where it's they are not feeling attacked, but just bring this knowledge, this point of view for them to start taking other decisions if they want to, and maybe ask for help in their communities or in their families, or if they have none of that, their friends, maybe seeking professional help, maybe seeking someone they can rely on to just try to change or try to adapt this knowledge into practice, into actions, tangible actions. Because it's really important for me to be able to trust that we are not perpetuating things that we can control. Some things in culture and society we cannot control. It's too political, it's too draining for us living in a system that just is so incompatible with this kinds of topics and with this kinds of change. So that's why we have to try our best to make better decisions. In order to do that, we have to be able to understand and be open to new information, and information that is meant for us to be the best that we can be and do the best that we can do. So that's all. That's all for today's video. I had a blast. I love talking about these topics. If you want me to do another chapter of this book, I gladly will do it. And I cannot recommend it enough. I know that is a lot. Look at that. I am not even finished. It's a lot, but that's what I'm saying. If you want me to just make a summary for you and the points that I find relevant, I'm your girl. I am your girl. So that's all. Have a nice week. Have a nice day. Have a nice life. Oh, please leave in the comments the things that struck you the most, like what stuck with you in your mind, what made you start questioning some things, what are the points that you maybe do not agree on. Remember, always be respectful with me and other people in our community. If you are going to comment about something that you disliked or something that you can criticize, because if it's not productive, it's just hate. Okay, so see you until next time.